Good morning, everybody. Today we're going to do another episode of Coffee and Knives that seem to do pretty decent. Seems everybody likes it. Um, I have a little buddy in here. Wow, that thing's fast. Anyway, that's par for the course out here in the country. Uh, but got sidetracked there, guys. Sorry. Today we're going to discuss a little bit about some stuff and about this kind of came up with the hurricane that hit South Dakota and Georgia. Another content creator. Everybody, he's got two channels, and one of them's Crazy Russian Hacker, and I think the other one's Tall Trask, something of that nature. But he had a very, very good subject he was talking about in his videos that I think a lot of people really just haven't given a lot of thought to. We're going to go over that periodically throughout the video today. So please stick with me, guys, and we'll get right to it. All right, guys, I brought out a few of my budget stuff today. Just like to get a little more testing on them and stuff. So far, they perform good. This first one I got here is the Ozark Trail. I believe this thing's like I have to check the old video again, but I think it was like around $5. So far, this thing has been surprisingly fantastic, super sharp, and somehow is keeping an edge really well. But yeah, I mean, this thing is actually really nice. This thing is definitely worthy to buy multiples of these, my opinion, to put in some, kits for backup blades. Not too big, pretty sharp. But yeah, to get on what I was talking about in the intro, he was talking about generators. And well, as a situation arises in that extreme of a natural disaster, it's like, well, you can't get gas for those generators anymore. So unless you have a certain amount already stocked up, well, what do? Excuse me, coffee. So what do? I mean, as far as you can have so much of it already stored, you can put some stabilizer in it to help prolong the life of it. But, putting a rotation on that gas so it's used up so you can keep the fresh in stock, and that's a good idea. So basically, it'd be nice, like you said, if you could like manage like 100 gallons of just emergency storage, and then you just cycle through that as often as possible. Like I said, put fuel stabilizer in it. It helps. But ultimately, how long and how much. This one here's been a pretty fantastic blade too, guys. This fastback. So I had some thoughts on that too. Now, having a large solar setup with solar panels, batteries, and stuff, and all those initial costs for setting up stuff like that is quite expensive, especially if you're wanting to run an entire house. That can get like super pricey, and most of us on our common blue working collar side or blue collar working side, we use just your regular generators. You put gasoline in it, maybe you got a diesel. Some people I know actually got the Generacs, which are actually really nice. They can run on natural gas, provided that you're where you're living at, you have a natural gas well on your property, and maybe as part of a contract to the oil company or something, you got the ability to get free gas. Something like that would be fantastic. But yeah, there's definitely limitations to the diesel and gasoline generators, especially as far as capacity. Now, I guess being at capacity is definitely one of your weak points. Uh, if you could possibly, now mind you, this is obviously all under a bunch of ifs, and if you have the amount of fundage you needed to actually do it, a little bit of a combination. Say, if you can do the 100 gallons of gasoline, but also have some solar backup, and if nothing else, device for your devices like your cell phone. Maybe you got some USB chargeable flashlights and the likes, or like I had showed previously. Get a few of those small solar cell chargeable, rechargeable power banks, and some of those have a built-in flashlight, and those really vary. I mean, there's some really expensive ones, some very cheap ones, but just have something, and I'd recommend, as slow as those charge, like the one I got, it takes almost a full 8 hours in the sun for it to recharge from empty. So having at least two of those per person if you're getting the more affordable ones. That way you can be using one. You got one that's always in reserve being charged. Uh, but he, like I said, the points you were making were quite valid. He's saying that because he has a wife and three children, and so it was, that's very difficult, especially with young children. Like the need for water, and that was, always a really great concern. But then he was fortunate enough the weather was cool enough and just warm enough to have to worry about heating and cooling, and that would be a heavy drain on his generator. So he was just firing up the generator for certain points throughout the day, like morning and then late in the evening, make sure, some basic stuff was able to take care of, and as he was talking about the difficulty in that kind of disaster, like I said, getting the fuel, because all the stores were shut, no electric, no gas, no power. I mean, this was, a statewide, horrible natural disaster. So even if some of those stores were open, you may not even be able to get to those stores. So I'm thinking along the lines like he was. Yeah, there is definitely a point, a finite point where those kind of preps do have a limitation. So, how should I say it? You could grade the usefulness of certain preps based on the scale of disaster that happened. It's like your normal just storm. Power lines have come down, stuff. Your normal gas generators are typically going to work pretty good. You could at very least go to maybe the next county to get gas, a more localized disaster. But as we step up on that pyramid of how devastating the whatever happened, I'm just going to natural disaster is my general uh, usage of the word of what happened here. Just, it could be like I said, a normal storm that knocked down a bunch of power lines, derechos, crosswinds, tornadoes, and we got hurricane. Depending on the severity of it, uh, design your preps around that. Because if you can't even get to this place to get gas, and then he even mentioned it didn't matter if I could, because there was no stores even open. They lost all the power. All the perishable stuff was pretty well gone in 2 days, spoiled, rotted. So even if you could have somehow had already had enough gas in storage, other than a few appliances and some amenities like that, there weren't any point in worried about the food, because after they ate what they had, you could not go and restock on any kind of like meats, eggs, vegetables and fruits and stuff that is really perishable. So ultimately, you're set up with what you've already got stored up. And as we know, water is a serious concern because, like I said, usually they get contaminated due to floods and stuff like that. You can have your sewage treatment plant can literally be what's in all the surrounding waters and stuff, and it's sitting in the ground even after water levels go back to normal or semi-normal. Uh, yeah, it's not good for quite a while after a disaster like that. So having serious water filtration treatment ability without the requirement of electric is highly recommended. And there are methods to store water, and that's a thing that, as much as a nuisance as it could be, to constantly switch that out. I do know that there's some stabilizers you can use now that increase the lifespan of that by a bit. I highly suggest that if you're able to look into that, because the water is so important, guys. And baby formula, diapers, and vital medications are something that, if you can at all costs, just make it a priority to store those things up, because a lot of times the very young and the very old usually have the most difficult times and disasters like that, because their requirements are much higher than your more average uh, mid to late teen up until 30s, 2030s, and even the 40s. We can usually require less to be safe and comfortable. And when a medication is involved and just stuff for like the health of an infant, those things are so crucial. And if you're expecting, or you do have some infants or toddlers and stuff, I would make those definite priorities to get the things that they absolutely need. Like I said, diapers, baby wipes, any particular kind of special diet that's required. Do your best to make sure that that's taken care of too, guys. Okay, guys. Now, previous video I did, of this, knives and coffee. This is, as I promised, I'd bring up again in their video. That is my preferred instant coffee. I've tried a multitude of different brands. By no means have I tried them all. But as far as what I can just get locally, I can go to about any dollar store out here, or grocery store. They usually have this, and I don't really like instant near as your normal brewed coffee, but this stuff here actually isn't too bad. I don't mind drinking it. I can't remember the price, guys, because normally I only drink this stuff depending on what I'm doing, because most time if I got access to brewed coffee, that's what I'm drinking. So the last time I bought a container of this has been well over a couple years ago. And yes, this, though it's kind of stuck in here, I tried some of it the other day. There's no mold. It's fine. It smells just the way it did when I first opened it up. It's completely fine. So I drank a cup of it. Nice glass container. But coffee. But yeah, that's my recommendation. If you want to know what I prefer for an instant coffee, that was it. I gotta say, this If and Grow here. These, I got two of these. One of them is got the black handles. These things are really nice. I like having that smaller option depending on what I'm doing, where I'm going. Pretty tough, real good, sharp, holds an edge well. It's reliable enough. I can use this little guy in an emergency situation where I have to do any wilderness survival or bushcrafty type task. I can actually, I think I can rely on that. As long as I've had it now and as much use as it's got, yeah, I'm pretty okay with this particular knife. And as always, everything you've seen in this video, if you want a more in-depth look at, there is review videos on all these. So, yeah, this is doing great. Now, like during any kind of natural disaster, there's always going to be this element that we're not in control of, and uh, I mean, you can plan for as many things as possible. If you got multiple people in your household with an income, and everybody's trying to help, with some kind of prepping, it can definitely help. But we don't know, and how long the crisis is going to last. Like, I mean, I don't even have a guess at how long it's going to be before what's happened in the Carolina and Georgia and all them places. That, I mean, this is a pretty bad disaster. Like I said, I couldn't even guess. And there's some other political stuff going on with the government and some funding and stuff. I hate getting political because usually it's like a revolving door, and so many people got so many different points of views, and it usually just causes arguments. But yeah, there's some stuff going on there. It's not so cool. But I'll just say this: you can look it up. There's plenty of videos online about it right now. And that comes to another fine point I'd like to make. And I have mentioned this in other videos, why it's so crucial to be prepared, because in a true crisis situation, you can't rely on government bodies or any other entity. You have to rely on yourself. It's your responsibility, and it's just, you need to be prepared as to the best of your ability. And like I said, now you can get with your community, friends and families, everybody that's within a reasonable means to get to each other, to be able to have a plan to come together in a crisis. That way, the entire load is not put on one individual's shoulders. Now, obviously, we got to do the best that we can, but I think it's really important, guys, to figure out what your limitations are with that, and you'll do a short term, a medium, and then like long term, and then try to work within those parameters, and you upgrade as best you can when you can. Like I said, now if you add assistance from a community and stuff, that really bolsters everybody's ability. But in that situation, you need to have some people that are somewhat kind of in a leader role, that are highly respectable, and they're trustworthy, because it always could come down to someone who's ultimately making the decisions about distribution and stuff like that. And that's could always be a source of contention. So keep that in mind. Now, we do have another hurricane coming in, and this one has potential to turn into quite a large one. I usually watch Ryan Hall, y'all, to get like real serious. We're dealing with stuff like that. That's usually the guy I watch on YouTube. Him and his guys, that team he works with, seems to have everything on lockdown for us. Working weather systems with the computer setup and stuff they got, and satellites and stuff. He's got guys he uses for storm chasers. So if you haven't watched Ryan Hall, y'all, for the weather and stuff, highly recommend you guys check him out. A really good source of information. And keep in mind, if unfortunately this hurricane tracks where this last one went, since everything's already been hit so hard, and the infrastructure is weakened to the point it is now, if this thing hits at a high category, I mean, my goodness, everybody, prayers to everybody affected by these hurricanes, because another round of this is just going to be so devastating on top of what's happened. That little field mouse is back. I say little, but he's actually pretty big. There for a second, I thought he was going to try to crawl up my leg. Oh, anyway, sorry guys, distracted by rodents. One thing to take into consideration is if you get a chance to get good weather updates, and if you can, if you're in an area that could be devastated by such a storm, if you can, temporarily at least, leave. And I know that's easy enough to say because you got your house, you got your belongings and stuff, but like I'd recommend putting your most irreplaceable documents, birth certificates, and all that sort of thing in a small safe, something that's actually light enough to pick up and just throw into a vehicle, real small safe. Uh, make some copies on thumb drives. Have that information that where you can just, if you have to, be evacuated from your house, you can just grab. Here, I dropped my coffee, guys. Yeah. Didn't lose that much, no harm. But yeah, make sure that you can get this stuff set up to where you can like grab it and just go. That way, if you do have like an emergency, like a forest fire is one of the most fast moving deals where, all of a sudden they can get out of hand and start headed towards where you live. And you may literally have moments to safely get what you can, get in a vehicle, get out of there. So I highly recommend that everybody puts more forethought into your, we'll just call it evacuation plans. And as usual, when you do a FAT, you want to go with some classics like set up with your family members. Multiple places will be like your meeting place in case something happens and you're all not there to evacuate together. That way, everybody's at least got some kind of idea of, okay, if this happens, we're going to meet here at the park, or we're going to meet at aunt or uncle's or grandparents here. Have some game plans set up. That way, if the phones and cell phones and internet are compromised, at the very least, there's a way to figure out I need to go here. And on top of that, having like an emergency hand crank radio and stuff where you can get information, like say grandparents' place has actually become part of the evacuation area, which was actually your first place to go, so you don't want to run into a place where you could potentially lose your life because you didn't have that information. Man, this knife, guys, this thing is still going. I gotta say, I'm pretty impressed with the $5 knife from Walmart here. Ozark Trail has definitely upped their game with some of their cutting tools. I mean, I'm just hogging the wood with this thing. Yeah, and it's still shaving hair, guys. Pretty impressed for a $5 knife, guys. Well, everybody, I guess we can sum up this video is for try to be prepared, but do it in levels. Take for your area, if you know what natural disasters that you're prone to have, whether it be flooding, landslides, forest fires, real bad winter storms, real bad summer storms, tornadoes, hurricanes, even earthquake. Try to make a list of priorities, right? Like the most dangerous and most devastating, and then come up with a game plan of how to best deal with those particular disasters. That way you kind of got levels of preparedness to deal with, the worst case scenario. Now, obviously, you may have to start at the lower tier and just slowly build up as you can. Because, if you're prepared for all the bad stuff from like a hurricane slash earthquake, most likely everything that's below that you should be able to deal with easily enough when you're prepared that far above it. So that's why I suggest, you start down here at the bottom, make sure you got everything to cover these smaller things in case there is something very specific to those certain events. But as you build up that pyramid to your absolute worst possible scenario, I think at that point you can be pretty confident. And like I said, now I know there's a lot of recommendations for the amount of water and food and all that that you should be prepared for. And most places, it's they want 3 days, uh, even 3 weeks. I'm more of the 3 months, because if you get into a horrendously bad natural disaster, it could be months before everything is finally brought back up to some semblance of normalcy. So I recommend this is my minimum. This is 3 months. If you can go better than that, absolutely do it. But guys, I appreciate y'all watching. You guys have been pretty awesome. I've got some of the best viewers and subscribers. I mean, it is an extreme rarity that I get any kind of rude person. So you guys are the best. And with that, I thank you kindly, and I'll see you in another video.